Hi, I'd like to discuss the new investment world post the Royal Commission and how it might affect your investments and the way we deliver investment advice. I'll start by just doing a diagram next to explain, what the Royal Commission don't want to happen going forward and the way they want investment advice to be handled going forward. So the easiest way to do it is probably to show you the way they don't want it done and what's going to be banned going forward, and that's basically all around commissions and receiving money for a product that's been sold. You'll see the banks have sold products, stitch them up and then put people into these products and then claimed a fee every year without actually even changing the product or giving advice on that product. So I'll start with one such product that people could have been put into by an advisor or a bank. And generally, you will get, if it's say your superannuation or some sort of investment, you'll get a diversified portfolio with the major asset classes in there, being Australian shares, international shares. So that would be things like American markets, obviously Asian markets, and diversified through that part. You would also get an allocation to property, so your property trust, so you'd own things like Westfields, and even I suppose airports to a certain extent, but mainly property trust. Anything that receives a rent would be a property trust. So it's a rent. So these will give you dividends and capital growth. This will give you capital growth and sort of rents. They'll also put you into another asset class, which will be cash, fixed interest, and bonds. So that's your defensive sector. And basically you receive like interest or coupons from that part of your allocation and not really much capital growth. So these ones are growth, non-growth, but income only. Dividend, rent. Okay, easy. What the findings of the Royal Commission were that advisors or banks would sell these products either as superannuation or as investments, and obviously the fund managers within these that are managing the money within there charge a fee, which makes sense. But then also a fee would go every year to an advisor. Fee. Now that's the problem there. If you could be in this product for 10 years and nothing changes with it, and there's no different allocations, no advice is being given on it. Yet some advisors, once they'd sold the product, would get a trail commission of even up to 1%, which is twice as much as some active managers sort of charge. So their incentive was not to worry about once they've signed a person up to this fund. Their next concern was signing someone else up to the next fund, to the same fund, and that's how they generated their income. So they built a book of pure just trail commissions. Now, basically, this is what the Royal Commission said we cannot, have our industry doing, and that's what we're concerned with. And as of a few weeks ago, basically they've told all the banks to switch off trail commissions and the like. Now the problem is often some of the products that are related to trail commissions were the only products available 5, 10, 15 years ago to invest in. So it's a case of having to move people out of these types of funds, even if they have been actively managed, because they've switched them off and we need to move, they need to be moved to a new environment. But in doing that, you're going to have trigger buy and sell spreads, and it's a costly move. So sometimes it's best off leaving them in there, switching off the advisor fee, and then resetting some other sort of method. So if there's anyone that's in any particular funds like that, we would obviously have a discussion with at some point. But the method that we use and we would like to use going forward is done like this. So same client, same sort of asset profile comes in to get some advice, whether superannuation or investment advice, and they get the same allocation, Australian shares, international shares, property, and cash, or defence bonds and defensive. The difference here is that can be modelled and changed. So each of these sectors, like with the Australian share, will be not just given to one fund manager or a fixed fund manager, a fixed amount of fund managers. It can be broken up into as many as you want. It could be so this fund manager might call it XYZ fund manager might specialise in the blue chip funds stocks. So it'll invest in Commonwealth Bank and BHP, big stocks. You might give an allocation to some of the smaller cap fund managers. So you've got them in segments within an allocation. Same with international shares. You know, can have allocations to, you know, a large cap stuff. You can also over regions, so you'll have an allocation to Asia, which you can either increase or decrease depending on what the environment is. But North America does make up a bulk of investments. Whereas over here, if it's not managed and it's just set and forget, basically you're stuck with I think the general mix is 60% plus would just be in North American stocks and the rest would be scattered around the world. Now, if you set that 10 years ago, we all know that those allocations definitely should be shifting more to Asia as a priority, not necessarily a priority, but getting towards that way. Even now, 20% probably should be towards Asia, but I know 10 years ago the benchmark would have been give it 5%. So you've really got to, those funds become dangerous after a while if they're just left sitting. So this is the way we would like to do it, and some other advisors do it this way. Obviously, there's costs involved in that, which is okay, because what we do is we would send switch advices out and move these allocations around according to what might suit you or what we think in the future is going to happen. Like start over the years, you might start adding more to Asia as those markets become more developed and efficient. That's obviously the preferred method. That's not a good method, and that's probably why that's cancelled. There are other methods. You could go into industry funds which will do that for you, and I think that's something we've got to be open to. So you could actually go in there and get your allocation with an industry fund or even a bank fund that's a balanced fund that someone behind the scenes just tweaks these positions. The only downfall for that is it's a one in all in. So if they wanted to reallocate this, they have to sort of sell the whole. You can't just go to them and say, no, I just want to take a little bit out of the international shares. They're not going to do that for you. You've got to follow whatever that model portfolio they have is. Whereas in this case, every individual client, depending on their circumstances, can reallocate according to the sector, and also within the sector from the individual investments within that sector, which is really helpful for retirement income. If you wanted to take an income or buy a caravan or do something different in one particular year, you can just carve out a bit of cash if that's the appropriate thing to do. Or you could, if the international shares had run quite high and you thought it was time to move out of some of those, you take the opportunity to take it out of there, or a combination of thereof. So that's how we manage want to manage things going forward, which is how we do it, fortunately. But what we're going, because of some of the rules with the Royal Commission, we are probably going to have to restructure the way or re-engage at least the process, because our process has been involved very much with the accounting firm and just being a service to the accounting firm. So a lot of the fees that we generate here, we blend in with doing accounting work and lots of other things as well. So and with self-managed funds. So it's at some point we're going to have to separate the two elements. So it's this part of the advice section at this level, we're going to have to sort of quantify and make a separate sort of cost centre, I guess. And then obviously we can still do the other investment advice like estate planning, you know, in insurances and the like as a separate sort of event. So that's the way we like to see it going forward. But I hope that explains the different fee structures and what the Royal Commission is all about and what they're not happy with. We're happy with the way we run portfolios. Love to keep doing it that way in continuing. But we will send out some stuff to re-engage that process and reset the costings, how we can do it. I'd probably also like to have a chat with anyone that would consider just going into like a default fund and have no fee. I think that's probably the thing that people, you need to know what those choices are and what the advantages and disadvantages of those are. Because year to year, if this is just set up and this is just set up, really the performance is going to be quite similar. It's just as time goes on, as this becomes less appropriate and this stays appropriate, is where the benefits are gained. Or if we have an event like the GFC, when the GFC occurred, at some point in time, the Australian dollar just crashed. That allowed us to look at these segments and say, let's drop out of this sector for a little bit, because we won't, even though the market's gone down 50% on that, we actually get out for free, because once you convert it back to Australian dollars, we actually haven't lost anything. So we're able to take it out of there. Unfortunately, I put some of it into this sector, but I did still put some into the cash. At the end of the day, it was a massive win for all clients going through the GFC, and actually the GFC as an unfortunate event, once things rebounded, we're actually better off for it. You know, the market only produces winners and losers in an average. And we fortunately are well above that average line, because there was a lot of losers there. Anyone that had, you know, big gearings on stocks, or were forced to sell certain areas, or just had to go up and down with the market, which is what you'd have to do here. You wouldn't be able to ring up and take a little bit out of the international shares and move it around. So they're the advantages and disadvantages of both ways to invest going forward. We much prefer this method, and it's an expensive exercise, as much as, you know, you might get a statement to say switch once in a while, but to do that takes a lot of time. You know, there's probably 5 hours a week, you know, during the night, where you have to watch to keep abreast of current international news. It does affect what's going on in portfolios, and it shapes our decisions to what to invest in the future. It's not just we walk in one morning and say, let's just do a switch, and that might take us a week to organise the paperwork. You've got to be engaged with fund managers. There's thousands of fund managers out there. You know, you've got to meet with them regularly to make sure that they've got an appropriate team to deliver the performance that's at least going to match that. And then we've got to then set positions. So it's a constant work, and it probably takes up 80% of my time, even though you might only see, you know, a couple of pages a year from it. So it is an expensive exercise, and you can see the temptation to ignore, to blindfold everyone of that work and just grab a fee for nothing, because, you know, that's the easy option, and that's what they're getting rid of. I'm passionate about investing, and I'm passionate about looking to the future. I suppose that's why I moved away from accounting into the investment side, because I didn't want to sell a product. We interviewed financial advisors to fill this role years ago, and they were just in that mould of selling products. This is what I'm passionate about and what I want to do, but we're going to have to obviously change the way we structure agreements going forward, and make sure we're complying with the Royal Commission findings, which we are. And I'd love to chat with anyone that wants to discuss this further, and make sure that we can tailor it, whatever method suits you, to tailor that. So I think it's about re-engaging with you again and finding out what's required and what's best for you. So please give me a call, or Paula a call. She's all over this as well, and we'll catch up soon. And I'll do some more videos about some educational stuff too. I think it's a good way to inform and give you some peace of mind, because the markets have been a bit turbulent at the moment. We've had, up to December, the results were terrible. Fortunately, we did some switches that actually cushioned that blow a little bit, but still a negative result. Has rebounded a bit since, but it's good if I can do these videos, maybe put your mind at ease, knowing what the investments we've got and what the real loss is, or if it's paper loss, and what we're thinking, how we can counteract that in the future. So thanks for listening, and please get in touch with Paula or myself if you want further information. Thank you.